Hi, this is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to The Krypton Report,
the All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Welcome to the Krypton Report. This episode is awesome. It's a great interview. I was trying Zoom. Zoom has, become more popular, and sometimes it records better from Skype. So if the audio is a little different, I apologize. This is my second recent interview in Zoom, and we're working on it. We're trying to figure it all out and figure out how to get the best quality recordings using new technology. I hope you guys enjoy. This is like what I like to call raw. The interview is us talking. There's pauses because the kids come down and say hi and get excited. So this is, just kind of how it is in the cave of solitude. You guys enjoy. I hope you enjoy my guest. And afterwards, look at the show notes. Go check out my guest's podcast. It is awesome. I highly recommend it. Welcome to the Krypton Report. This is a fun special episode I got. I have a fellow podcaster, fellow Superman enthusiast, fellow Man of Steel himself, Mr. Luke Bugg, the Geek of Steel. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm very, very well. I was very excited when I got the message about coming onto the show and being a guest. I am a fan of the podcast. We were just talking about the intro before we hit record, and the fact that your kids are involved in that is incredibly cute, but also the names that are involved in introducing the show, including the wonderful Mr. Dan Jurgens, who is a hero of mine.
Yeah, I one of your episodes that I loved listening to that took me like 4 days to listen to was your interview with Dan, because I had it in the car and I was listening, and then the kids would start talking and asking questions because they'd hear certain things, and I'd pause, talk to them, and I have, let's see if I can turn my screen. I have this, it's on the wall over here.
That's poster.
Yeah, my wife found that at a thrift store for me. And so when I got to interview with Dan not too long ago, it was just one of those magical moments of, I've heard your voice before. Now your voice is talking to my voice. So
it's a great piece. Did you get the armband as well?
No, I want one. And
so they're always, quite often, I see them pop up on eBay, not in the UK, but in America and Canada. So the next time if I do see it, I'll send one your way. I mean, a lot of those comic originals are still sealed because people want to sort of, keep it airtight and keep it safe. I've got about 5 now that I've collected over the years, but the one with the armband, it was really a nice little touch with a few faux news articles and some of the original trading cards as well. So if I see that pop up again, I will send it your way. But yeah, Dan Jurgens, a hero of mine, because the death of Superman and the return of the Superman is a comic that really introduced me to that character, and it's just such an epic storyline. And to speak with one of the people that helped that happen and who helped make that epic black suit was just like a dream come true for me to sit down and talk with him.
It was great when I was talking to my wife and my mother-in-law. I was like, yeah, I'm doing an interview with comic book legend Dan Jurgens. And they're like, oh, okay, well, what has he done? And I'm like, Death of Superman? They're both like, okay, all right.
Okay. That's something I remember. Superman. Yeah, that was a big deal back in the day.
And then, like I said, my wife found that. She went into a thrift store and she saw it and came home, was like, look what I found. And I was like, for real? I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
This is why I married you. This was the reason.
Oh, man, if I could take you on a tour of just some of the stuff that she's got me that's in here, I
can see a bit. Lots of stuff's catching my eye.
She just got this for me.
Dude, don't even. I can find some Iron Giant content because there's always some not too very far away from me, because it is just not only a delightful story, but one of my favorites, one of my little pins there. But I've seen a lot of those statuettes, and some that you can take off the little shield that he made of himself, and some that just gorgeous.
We just introduced the kids to the movie this past year, And then over the summer, my in-laws, we built like an outdoor screen and got a projector. And one of the first films we watched was The Iron Giant. And every time he does the Superman and flies, I get teary-eyed. So she found that and gave it. I was like, oh, yes. I was like, that is beautiful.
Powerful scene. I try, like, you know, it's hard to control emotions when it comes to Superman and films that just capture your attention. But that film and that I can remember watching it when it came out. And the fact that it didn't do that well in the cinemas, whether that was a marketing issue or not, was a bloody travesty. But it has become just a cult classic now. And I don't think it should have a sequel. I think it would ruin the magic of the original. But it is a very powerful film that I will never get tired of watching and crying at.
Yes. I think part of, like you were saying, and what tangent, who cares? Fun. It was at that weird time where they were slowly stopping hand-drawn animation, and everyone was just so excited about computer animation. I think now, if you were to release and do a film like that, it'd be that nostalgia trip of, oh my gosh, a beautiful, pristine, hand-drawn film. Like, I even remember when The Princess and the Frog came out, I was excited to see it just because it felt like classic Disney hand-drawn again.
One of my absolute favorite Disney films, not only for the story and the characters, but that artwork. When I spoke with Jim Cummings last year, and it was like a voice artist gold. And he sang some of Marceline to me, and I was like, you're breaking my heart. Stop it. But yeah, as you said, watching that animated movie, it's the trees, the tiniest little detail of something that's on a shop window or even on a menu. It is just a gorgeous film that hopefully one day I'd love to see on the big screen, because I didn't get a chance to at the time. But now going back as this self-declared Superman ambassador, I'd want to see that on a big screen. So if not, I'll just, when I'm allowed to travel, I will come round to your private studio to watch that on the big screen and cry along with you.
Oh, you're always welcome.
Thank you, buddy.
Being here, this is a question I always ask, and sometimes it can be controversial just in thought. What's your favorite Superman film?
Now, yeah, this is always like one of those difficult questions, because there's so many different types of Superman fan out there. You're always going to step on somebody else's cape, as it were. Now, people have called me a Superman superfan over the years, which is very nice, but I much prefer the term Superman ambassador, because I'm not a super fan, because I don't know every single fact about my hero. I'm always learning something new, or reading a story, or listening to a radio play that I've not heard of before. So there are so many different types of Superman fan out there that are diehard Reeve fans, or for Henry Cavill, or for Tom Welling. I love them all. I'm a big Superman fan, but Superman 1978 is a classic. It's an absolute classic movie, and without that film, we wouldn't have superhero films like we do have today, that are all filled with massive amounts of green screen and CGI. Yep. You don't know what's real, you don't know what isn't. But with that Superman 78, with that classic tagline of "You will believe a man can fly," I still watch it and still am amazed at those flying scenes, because they were lengthy scenes.
Yes.
And so I always do love that film. Yes, I love Superman 2 and 3. Even I've got a few soft spots for Quest for Peace.
See, I always defend Quest for Peace, because here, like in America, it was like the one that was on TV all the time. So it was like, I just have memories of being at my grandparents' house, playing in the basement, and they would just turn on the TV, and it seemed like almost every time we were there, it was on. So it was just one of those that was on in the background. It just, and as a child, you don't know it's bad.
Yeah, that's it. You don't know it's bad. That's the thing.
Just like for the longest time, I didn't realize what Superman 1 and Superman 2 were. Because in my brain as a kid, I had seen them always so close together. And I'm like, well, I remember at the beginning, you meet Zod and Ursa. And then I realized as I got older, there's two films, they connect. And then I was like, oh, okay. But it's always interesting to ask, because I've realized over time, my favorite Superman movie has actually become the recent Death of Superman, the animated film. I really like the way that was done. Because I feel like in a lot of ways, Superman the movie is like here. That's like the default answer that everyone goes to. So then you're like, okay, well, what would be my next, kind of, and like you said, like Superman, it's a character that's, we've really gotten a lot of that to the point that there is kids out there who their first Superman, their introduction will be Henry or Tyler as our two newest iterations. There's people whose first Superman was Brandon. And, like my first Superman, of course, was Chris. But at the same time, the first one that I got to enjoy more was Dean Cain because I was, a little bit older and it was weekly. It was the now, and all I had was Superman 1 taped from TV, so like I had a really grainy copy of it for a while. And then, of course, as I got a little bit older, when Smallville came out, that came out at the perfect time for me.
Yeah.
So then, Tom became my Superman because the character's in high school. I'm in high school. And, when I sit down, I look at my life, I'm like, all right, Smallville started here. I was in high school. I went to college. I lived life. I got married, and a month after we were married when Smallville ended. So, this show is in the background of so much
it's
of
part
my
of your family
life.
Tree. It's part of your heritage. If you went on that genealogy.com, whatever it is, where you find your family tree's history, Superman and Small have been there for all of your life. That's fantastic.
So when I'm trying to get this year's the dates, October of 2019, we went to WizardCon and got our family photo. And it's me, my wife, my two kids, Tom, Michael Rosenbaum, and then Laura. Because my wife's been trying to every year get a picture of me and her or me with different Superman actor.
Wow.
What sucks is we were going to a con in February in Cleveland, which is the birthplace of Superman.
Certainly is.
To meet Tyler and get a picture taken, and then it was shut down and everything just started shutting down. And
yeah.
So we're like, but
that time will come again, hopefully. But yeah, Ohio is on my many lists of places I need to visit. I feel that would be like a spiritual awakening for me. I know it doesn't look the same as it once did many years ago, but I know that you can go there and visit some of the sites. And
I wish you could have come 2 years ago, because the Siegel House and the Schuster House are always standing. But 2 years ago, the Cleveland, I live right outside Columbus. Cleveland did the Cleveland Library, had a huge exhibit.
And I've got a friend that lives in Ohio. Sorry for interrupting, but she sent so many photographs of that event. There might even be seen a picture of you in the background somewhere, but it looked like the event that a diehard Superman fan would just love to be a part of.
Yeah.
In the place where that character was created. And the fact that it was also literally based on the comics and its history seemed like a magical moment. And yeah, one of the reasons why I want to go back to America, but also to Ohio, is just to be in the vicinity of where my hero had that eureka moment where he was created.
I got where's the brochure? It was called From Cleveland to Krypton. And yeah, we went up there. It was, it's only 2 hours from us. Mm-hmm. So it was just one of those, I told my wife, I was like, let's get out. This is a free event. It'll be fun. The kids will like it. Just, sometimes day road trip thing. And there's architecture the that you'll see in Cleveland, like the building, I'm drawing a blank right now, that inspired the look of the Daily Planet is in Cleveland. And you can look at it and see, I see how that was the Daily Planet. And I have a picture of it I took somewhere. But it is cool, especially when you learn the history of Cleveland, and it does make me sad that Cleveland doesn't embrace, there's no statue, the Siegel. I'm trying to get an interview with the Siegel and Schuster Society, but they're very busy.
Yeah. I've tried my best to speak with someone from that family. It's quite difficult, but hopefully one day we'll both get that interview because they've got a lot of stories to tell.
I would just, I would love if there was like, I really wish that if the people who own the Siegel House, like, ever move out, if that could be bought, made into a historical monument, and secured as a museum, and be a permanent museum, because what is it, like in Ohio, there's the Christmas Story House. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie. Like,
I am. It's got a lamp with a leg on it.
Yeah, like the house that was filmed in, they made into like a museum. You can go and it's a museum. And I'm like, I would love a permanent Superman museum that is Superman, but more about Jerry and Joe, and really honoring the people who created it and the struggle and the story that they went to. Like, have you ever read, grab my book off my shelf?
The Boys.
Yeah.
Yes, whenever I'm going away for a while and I know that I can't access the phone or the internet, that book comes with me because it is just fascinating. What a life those two had.
And it's just, I really think, like, they did the film about Professor Marsden and creating of the Wonder Woman, but man, I think we need a film about Jerry and Joe. Like, there was that short little documentary that I don't, if you got to see the, hold on. AMC did it. It was called The Secrets of Comics, and it was put on by Robert Kirkman. I don't know why I was drawing a blank. Robert Kirkman's Secret of Comics, and it was like a mini series, and each episode faced like a different facet of comics. Like, there's one on Wonder Woman, one on Milestone, one on Jerry and Joe, one on Stan Lee. And each one was a little bit of a different flavor, but it's like a short little mini documentary. I'm like, this is so fascinating that I really wish people understood their story and their struggle. And all right, real quick, a couple more questions, and then we'll get into our topic.
No, this is great. I love this. I could talk about this subject for hours, as I'm sure you could. So
yes,
I'm more than welcome.
That's why I'm like, this is what happens, people, when you get two really big Superman ambassadors. I like that term. I'm going to start using it.
Okay. Good man.
And they're meeting and getting to talk for the first time.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, we've talked a lot over the internet and Twitter before and emails, but this last year and this year has been an interesting time for being a podcast host, because we're like, everybody is at home. So everybody is available now. So let's reach out. That's it. Fantastic fortress there as well.
I call it the Cave of Solitude because it's my basement.
That's it. Still works.
Exactly.
Still works.
So here's a trick question. Which is your favorite portrayal in live action of Clark Kent?
Now, it's a good question. Now, Smallville was pretty much all Clark Kent, apart from one scene where we almost got the glimmer of him in the suit.
Yeah, it's that kind of weird. My wife likes to use the term sometimes. This is why I love her. When it's like that mixture of not really Superman, not really. She'll use Cal more as like this middle ground.
Yeah.
As he's carving out the identities that he'll present. So she always kind of will be like jokingly like, yeah, Smallville's more of Cal's journey. I'm like, all right, good job.
Okay, I'll let you have that one. That one. No more. Just that one. I adore what Brandon brought to the role as Clark Kent. Those more quiet scenes, those scenes of self-reflection on his past and some of the future that he missed out on. I love that. Christopher, though, the way that he portrayed Clark and made me believe that these two very different looking people, both in appearance, personality, and just everything, I can see why people would not see him being Superman, just because of the fact. Now, again, talking about CGI and green screens, that one scene, one of my favorite scenes, the balcony scene, where they go off and he does the interview, they talk about pink things, they talk about everything else, comes back, and then we see Clark again, and he's thinking, he's contemplating that maybe I should tell her it's our first, but he does that whole shrug. You see him chills every single time, even now thinking about it, because that physical acting moment where you see him, he's confident. I'm going to tell her that I am, in fact, this man of her dreams that she adores. And then second, he doubts and goes back down. You think that's two different people in the same suit. And it's not even a Superman suit. It's a regular kind of tacky suit that we see a lot of in this book. Yes. Most of this book is straight out of Superman movies, but that portrayal of Clark is always one that I love as an origin story, as it were. I mean, just like this tried to be an origin story, it still took a lot of references from the movies, a bit of Smallville that we'll talk about. But we see a lot of Clark in that film, and I adore both characters equally for what they bring to the Superman mythos. But Christopher as Clark Kent is always just a joy to watch. Now, in more recent movies, we didn't really get to see much of Henry Cavill as Clark. We saw a little bit. We saw a little bit of plaid, as we both got on today. We saw him at the planet. We saw him riding a bike. We saw some sweet interactions with his mum and his dad. But
we saw a little bit more on the extended cut of BVS where he was interviewing and talking to a lady. So I just like to bring that up because that was like the only real Clark scene.
It wasn't yet of him going out and being, an investigative journalist. That is his job. He didn't do much journalism in Man of Steel, apart from the end, which made us get some false hope for a Man of Steel sequel that we still, I know, I'm still definitely hoping for. But we saw him be a journalist in Superman the movies, and we saw some of that in Superman Returns. We saw him back in the planet, and I love Clark Kent. I think he's a fantastic character. He's brave to a certain extent. He's wise. He knows to keep those two jobs apart, but he took on that job so that he could keep his super hearing to the ground to find out what was going on. And that makes him, as Superman, even though he's this heroic figure, he's a character that listens, not only to the world that's going around him, but the people that he interviews as well. So I think that's why I like asking people questions, and sometimes I can ramble on for too long because I'm getting that Clark Kent mode going on a bit.
See, recently I agree with everything you said. I've really come to have a new appreciation for George as Clark Kent. A little bit tougher. And I think it's that Clark kind of with the Dean Cain Clark is a whole. We did a huge dive into, like, after John Byrne's Man of Steel, how the first interpretation of that came out was Lois and Clark. The first one to kind of take that new idea of Clark and where they were going with that character. And I look back, and I'm looking at George's, there wasn't a huge distinction between his Clark and his Superman.
No.
But I liked his Clark. But then on the Superman side, Chris's Superman is like the gold standard.
Yeah.
Like he really has the two, down. And even, thankfully for Crisis, Brandon was able to give a similar performance, but actually put more of him into the character of how he would do it and not have to be so tight to Chris's shadow. So that was, great to see.
It gave people a taste as well of what they were missing or what could have been if the Superman Returns, that franchise particularly, continued. Because you can tell that he's not only got a lot of love for both the character of Superman and Clark Kent, he is fully aware of how much that was a part of his life. Mm-hmm. And I was very honored when I went to the Superman celebration for the first time. He was there and we had like a brief chat and spoke with him, and it was like speaking with Clark Kent from Superman Returns. Very charming, very polite, very humble. And there was a part when I was in the queue waiting to get like as many things possible as signed by him. His mum and dad were there.
Oh, wow.
And there was a part that was just like a Ma and Pa Kent scene where in between the photographs, his mum would just sneak in and like make sure his jacket was nice and tight. And she'd push his hair down, trying to hide that spit curl. And I was like, "You're Ma Kent. This is adorable." But yeah,
I mean, you listen to his upbringing. He is that character almost. Like, growing up Iowa, and like, I think what's crazy. This is a quick side tangent. That at one point in time, at the same high school on the same soccer team, was Brandon Routh and Jason Momoa.
That's it. That's an origin story for another day. But they're there together, fighting it out. Maybe, hopefully, if they were on the same team, that would be great. But if they were on different teams, that would be even better.
It was crazy, but it's just always neat to get people's different, like, every super fan, Superman lovers, has different elements of the character that they show. Hey, Solomon. You're okay. You can say hi to Luke.
Hello, Solomon. Hello. Do you like Superman?
You can come here.
Hello. And who's this?
This is Sayla, my little Supergirl.
Hello, Supergirl. I like your T-shirt. I like Minnie Mouse.
Okay, well, I'll be upstairs later to take care of that, okay? You guys head back upstairs, all right? Okay. I'll find it for you. Just go play on the iPad and watch something. They lost the Apple TV remote. So.
They are stupidly small.
Yes. I put Velcro on it to keep it but it gets you still, if they don't put it back, whatever. So yeah, the reason why I picked Secret Origins, it was on my schedule to do this year, but I've learned from different podcasts and rereading it and thinking it's actually kind of become a little bit more controversial than I originally thought when it came out. And I got thinking, like, all right, if I'm going to do this book, it would be interesting to do this discussion with someone else who's a huge super ambassador. And so I was like, that's why I pitched it to you, like, hey, like, we're gearing up, for Tyler's debut and Superman and Lois. And I'm excited. I haven't passed my judgment on, like, his portrayals. So, like, I kind of keep him in this little pocket because I feel like he was really great when he started on Supergirl, and then they kind of kept pushing him to the back. So, we're going to do a whole deep dive into him later. But I was like, this would be a fun story to get into. To discuss with you today, and I'm kind of going there because I feel like you and we could talk forever.
Oh, we could, and it is, yeah. I've got obviously the single issues, but I got this one when it came out. I can remember. Now I do treat my graphic novels and comics with the respect that they deserve, but if I get the chance to meet any Superman creators in the UK, obviously right now it's not easy for me to go to any con, whether it's national or international. But a few years ago, I did get the chance to meet Gary Frank.
Oh, nice!
And so this was my signed copy, still nice and in good condition. But I like to take comics that I've read and enjoyed. So
I have on the shelf. I have Kingdom Come and I have Superman Birthright, both signed by Mark Waid.
Wowzers! And
it was two different events too. Like. The first one, I got him to sign Kingdom Come, and I was nervous meeting him. The second time I met Mark Waid, I got him to sign Birthright, and I actually got to sit down and talk to him and do like an interview. And the audio was a little crappy because it was the con and first time doing it, and like I'm in the shadow of greatness here. Like one of my, I don't know if you read any of the death metal stuff, but did you read the little short story that Mark Waid did in?
I've got it here somewhere, but I didn't know. I'm have to get on that.
It's in it's one of the bigger like tie-in books. It's the last story. I think it's the last. There was two of them I bought. I'm trying to remember which one's which, and I'll take a picture. But it was like the last stories of the universe. It's in my box. I'll pull it out. I'll send you a picture later. But Mark Waid wrote a little couple-page short story in it, and I mean, it was just the heart of Superman's right there, and you're just like. I wish he would return to the story. And I bring up Waid because I had done on a different podcast, we had reviewed Birthright. And, you go into the history of Birthright. Birthright was hey, let's update the origin. This is the Superman story. This is what came out. And that was in 2006-ish, I think. Is when Birthright came out. Sounds about right. My dates. I'm horrible with numbers, people. I'm horrible with numbers.
Yeah, that's it. I'm fine. I can remember all the story, but not the timeline of when it came out or when it was released.
It was the one thing I didn't write down because I wrote in my notes here that, you had Geoff Johns did Green Lantern Rebirth in 2004 is when it started. And that's kind of, I think, where we get the beginning of Johns really restructuring, changing the DC universe, because then in 2009, which is when Secret Origins comes out, we also get Flash Rebirth. So it's kind of like Johns taking the DC universe, bringing back the legacy parts. Like, oh, we got rid of Hal Jordan. I'm going to bring him back. Oh, Barry Allen's still dead. I'm going to bring him back.
Bring him back, yep.
You got this origin for Superman over here. You know what? I'm going to reestablish some things that was like the origin here. And the more I thought about that, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it, because that's why I'll do the book, So that's why we're doing Secret Origins. It's kind of, do we like this origin? Do we like the story that was told? I will say the artwork's great. Like A plus, like Gary Frank's artwork is amazing. Like I love that he's the one that did Doomsday Clock. So you can't say anything negative about the artwork. And the one thing I will say that I don't want it to sound negative is, as much as I like how much he pays artistic to tribute to Chris, I kind of wish he didn't. And I say that, people are probably like raising pitchforks just now. Because I feel like each time you do, the comic should have its identity. The movies have their own identity, because each movie is kind of like its own Elseworlds tale.
Yes, it's a good way of putting it. But with this book, they're not even trying to hint at the fact, well, that kind of looks like Christopher Reeve's smile. It was Christopher Reeve's smile. And even like as I go to a page just now here, randomly, that there is a Christopher Reeve grimace.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And now Lois Lane was completely, it was the classic appearance of Lois Lane. I get it. But it didn't look anything like Margot Kidder. But
yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of one of those things like, oh, I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm like, okay. It's not like when they did the Wonder Woman 75, 77.
So yeah, that was Linda Carter. Clearly.
Yeah, it was her story.
Fantastic artwork. But
just like when they did Batman 66, continues in the comics. Like,
yes. That's
that. This is not supposed to be Chris' Superman story. It's the comic Superman. Yeah. So I kind of go back and forth like, because it's one of those things like, oh, I appreciate and I like this, but at the same time I'm like, is that the same Superman that I kind of think was the one that fought Doomsday? Like, because it's all supposed to be kind of tied together. And
it is, as you said, it's fantastic artwork, but for a story that is called an origin, you're expecting at least something a little bit new. And we did have some new and fresh takes to it. But there's even a scene in this, as I go to the exact same page, not even bookmarked, but very fortunate. There was him saving Lois and a helicopter scene.
Open right up to it.
Yeah,
issue 3.
The only thing different there was the fact that she didn't say who's got you. If it was that, then that's taking it a bit too far. But it was cute. It was clearly an homage to Superman 78. But they didn't have to do it as much, I don't think, as you said.
So I have the individual issues. You have the collected trade. And we'll kind of go through. I mean, I remember this was one of those stories. I walked into my shop and I saw the issue sitting there. And I was like, oh, sweet. And just picked it up.
Yeah.
This was at the time that, the big Blackest Night was going on, because I was there with my friend, because he loves Green Lantern, so he was buying all the Blackest Night books. And I saw this, and I picked it up, and I remember reading it and just flipping through this first issue. I like everything I'm getting.
Yes.
I'm loving the Pete Ross. I'm loving the Lana. And it makes me, I think back, like, I really wish we would have gotten some sort of story, like really good story of like Pete, Lana, and Clark,
I love that. Anything story that wise together, and there's some fantastic moments in Superman for All Seasons where we do get that. But I love anything to do with Smallville. And if you can go to the page, if you can spot it, there was a football accident, wasn't there? Which is why Pa Kent never likes Clark playing American football. If you go to the scene in the school, and Pete Ross has got a cast on.
Yep.
Right. See if you can see the name that's just hidden by the strap on that cast.
Let's see, Chloe Sullivan.
Chloe Sullivan, yeah. So which was what I mean, it's not really a character we can talk about much anymore, but I love that there were the fact that there were a lot of Smallville references in this comic, and Smallville is what got me into Superman in the first place. So I adore all that, but
there's a man, like speaking of small, I joke with my wife. So about 5 miles from my house, there's a middle school and a high school that are very old school, like built schools. Mm-hmm. That if I was the one like, hey, I need a scout to film a scene of Smallville High, these would be the schools I would film in. They have that look, feel, you walk out the front door of the school, it's cornfields. The schools are surrounded by cornfields because that's where I live, is in cornfields. But the school colors are already black and red. So all you have to do is throw in some yellow. And
you've got the crows already.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean. Yeah, for a first issue, for going back and getting for a decent origin story, I want as much about Clark, Pete, Lana, as much as you possibly can. And you did get a bit of that in that first issue, which was great. But it doesn't take long before it goes right back into like the Reeves stuff. But
I love everything with them. I love Ma and Pa. I love him I love that this is where we get the part that would be, in Man of Steel, I just want to be your son.
That's it.
You are my son.
I think that was in a cornfield as well, wasn't it? They do.
Yep.
I love cornfields. We don't get them. You've got to search quite a lot when you're looking for a cornfield in the UK. But
I'm sorry.
That's all right, man. I love them though.
I'll just take pictures of my front yard and just send it to you randomly. Like, here, Luke. Here you go.
Thank you, because it makes me feel, in a way, homesick. Or the last day of my trip to Metropolis in 2019.
Yeah.
A good friend there. We went out for I'd been there twice before, so I'd loved the town, everything about it, but I'd only really seen the town. And I went out of town one day for some shopping. But on my last day there, I got on a tour of the local area, and it was just all cornfields, long straight roads, dusty tracks. And I was like, this feels like I'm in Smallville. This feels like home in a way. And he even went to the extent of showing me some property that was for sale to try and tempt me to move, to Metropolis in a way. But as you said, yeah, everything in that first issue, the Mara and Pa Kent stuff, there's barn scenes, there's wisdom, advice, there's Clark finding the ship, getting to come to terms with his biological parents. But there it is, yeah. I want to be Clark Kent. I want to be your son. But you are my son. It's fantastic.
My wife took me to Metropolis for my birthday because I always said I wanted to go for celebration, but I'd love to go before to just kind of feel the town and get to experience the museum without the celebration aspect. And then we were supposed to go that same year that you went to celebration, but my wife was in school getting her massage therapy license, and she couldn't get the days off for us to go. So we were like, okay, we'll go next year. Well, then next year I couldn't get off work. And then scratch that. It was the year before I couldn't get off work. 19 was when we were going to go. Then we had it locked down for sure. We were going to go in 20. Mm-hmm. And then we all know how that worked out.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, but I mean, if you do get to go, I would recommend going whenever you can, whether it be the celebration or not, because it's two different places. So I went there for a week at a time, and it gave me time to explore the museum.
I love the museum. That was my favorite.
So I went there, I think, pretty much every day when I was out there. I wanted to go there and get a lot of video before the place was crammed, filled with people. But just walking around that town, I was there with my girlfriend, and just to walk around this quite quiet little city, I've never seen anything like that before. like seeing an old bank, seeing, a sweet little coffee shop, which was pretty much my version of the Talon. I was there every day, getting my coffee, trying to taste every single type of lemonade and cookie that they sold. But it's a different place when the celebration is on, because obviously there were thousands more people there, and sort of the air was electric. But to walk around it when it's not busy as such is a very different experience, but just one that was equally as special.
I'm sending you a picture. That's what I was looking for of a cornfield. It's I did a little photo shoot with my daughter in her Supergirl costume, and she did in front of like the corn and stuff. But yeah, it's coming. So
yeah, cornfields are.
So back to the book.
I can't. Yeah, back to the book. Yes,
I find cornfields comforting and relaxing. I don't know why. I think it's because of my love for Superman. Like even in Superman Returns, I always love the scene where he's running through the cornfield, and he leaps and everything. And of course, Smallville made it even better. One thing I go back in Superman mythology is the whole that Lex and Superman crossed paths and were friends before. Yes. I go back and forth on it, but I think in this book and in Birthright, I think it works out well.
Yeah.
It's just enough to kind of give that hint, to kind of this understanding. And I think it also shows a great deal in Lex's characterization of how he doesn't remember it. Like it didn't mean anything to him.
No, there's no chemistry. There's no bad feelings or, I remember you from back when you were just a little lad with red hair. Nothing there. Nothing at all.
Right. Clark remembers. He remembers everybody, but Lex, and to me, it's something that's really good for the plot development. I love the Lana Clark stuff. I hate that in Smallville, the show, they kind of took what Lana was and made her into two characters.
Yeah,
they split her into Lana and Chloe. So the comic Lana existed if you combine these two characters, which in the same way is kind of funny because when I watched the show, I always said, this makes sense to me why he loves Lois Lane. Because she's his two best friends and his best friend and his original love put together.
Yeah, he's getting the best of both worlds and somebody completely different sort of thing.
So, but the end of this book is the part that this is one thing in Superman mythology that I am not a fan of.
Okay.
And I will argue with anybody. I think everyone has their valid points. I don't like Clark Kent as Superboy. I don't like the idea of him putting on the suit and basically being
that earlier on, yeah. And he looks so out of place in the beginning. I think he's coming down some stairs, and you can see him in that sort of thing. That's not unsettling, but it's not right. That's the one. Yeah, you're thinking it just doesn't. It's too much combination of different storylines going on in one picture, and you can sort of. I think the face that he makes in that scene is the same face that a lot of fans had when they saw they were like, hang on a minute, this doesn't make too much sense. What's happening here?
And I've said it before. I like the idea that Clark as a person has to decide to become Superman. I try to explain to my kids when we were watching Legion of Superheroes how that's Superboy, but it's Clark,
Yeah.
And it's like one day he's decided, I turned 18 today. I guess I'm now Superman.
That's it.
You may call me Superman now. No, we're still going to call you Superboy. I'm 25.
Superboy, we get stuck. Yeah,
I'm Superman. Nah, you're still Superboy.
You're still Superboy.
I'm 30. All right, we'll give it to you. I like the idea that he had to grow into it. Like he had to accept it as an adult. He had choices to make before putting on the suit. And I know that a lot of great Superboy stories existed. A lot of them were written by Siegel. A lot of mythology to the character was created from those Silver Age stories. And then issue 2, the fact that he goes with the Legion, I don't like that. I don't, because then it makes some sort of weird time paradox that Superman's only Superman because of Superman.
Yeah.
He's only Superman because he went to the future, trained with the Legion, came back, became Superman to inspire the Legion to go back in time to get him. I mean,
yeah, that's the space-time continuum that when you start opening it up, you're never going to get those worms back in the jar. It's tricky.
So issue 2, I do like that we meet the father, of
Yes.
Lex. We get, Superboy doing some heroics. But to me, it just feels, how much easier is it to trace who Superman is if he's doing all this as Superboy, and then all of a sudden there's Superman. You're like, wait, wasn't there a Superboy who did some stuff in Smallville? Clark, aren't you from Smallville? Don't you disappear when Superman's around? Man, you guys look alike.
You do look at anywhere, glasses and everything, and yeah, there's a lot. It's nice to have nods to other comic stories and different comic universes, but when it clashes with each other, if that's when it starts to feel, oh, this has been forced upon us because we want to reach all the fans of the Superman franchise, not just Clark, but also Superboy and everything that goes between them.
I do like we got the interaction of like him with his telescope talking to Pa.
Yeah.
He does try to friend Lex more, and Lex is talking about Metropolis. So I do like their interaction, and then we have the Legion shows up, takes Clark, and they on this adventure. And all that's, it's all fun. It's all Silver Age, and it's not really like my thing. Like, and then he comes back, and he's all excited talking to his parents, and then he goes to stop the rocket ship, and that's exciting. But then it gets even more exciting when we have towards the end, we have the very interesting Lex Luthor part. And I'm gonna pull this up here.
Okay.
Because I like that we hint at Lex's sister. It's always been one of those things that some people leave out, some put in, or they kind of twist if she's a half sister or adopted sister,
a robot.
Yeah. But let's see, where is it? The hospital records never indicate any health problems. My father didn't go to the doctor. He didn't believe in science. We're sorry. Basically, Lex's dad died, and Lex is overjoyed. And it leads us to believe, because we see that he has the life insurance policy of his father, that Lex had something to do with his father's demise.
Gets a little bit Shakespearean, as it sometimes does, when Lex and Lionel are involved in a scene. But there's all sorts of both the good and bad sides of nepotism, and it's sometimes a little bit too Greek. I remember some scenes in Smallville were quite hard to watch because it was always, again, forced upon us. But little visual clues like that make you see, beyond the artwork. Mm-hmm. It could have just been a picture of a Metropolis brochure and his suitcase indicating that he was planning on just leaving. But adding that little bit of I think it was like farm state or something. Farm state insurance. It was like, oh, maybe it wasn't an accident, or maybe, this was all planned from the beginning. Anything where we get to see Lex be truly despicable, I love that. I love wicked Lex, not just, do I choose the good or the dark side? When he really just gets a grip on that dark place of his heart, it's just too good. I love
Lex Luthor's characters. I love the fact that not everybody gets to see the real Lex, and he's so good at being the business sleazy that it made sense that he moved into politics, and that to a lot of people he's this great savior, but to really, like, when you get to dig into it, you realize he's not, and it makes the character like that much more difficult for Superman to try to stop, because in a public arena sometimes he's regarded as being this great citizen, but yet Superman's like, no, he's not, but he has to prove it, So issue 3. Oh, what I was gonna say is, you're talking about Gary Frank is a very great storyteller in his images.
Yes.
That for a lot of, I think you could take out a lot of the dialogue and still get the story.
I would have loved. There are a few full-page pieces in here which, again, tell their own story, which is beautifully done, with either little things that you make believe are relevant to the story, and there's a lot, especially anything in Metropolis, I adore. But when he's given a full page just to create some magic, you look at the newspapers that are flowing around in the street, you look at the graffiti that people have sprayed on, and you're thinking, oh, that represents this, and that represents that, and this building looks like it should be that building. But there is, literally things in every scene, and even the minor characters that are just standing in the background, or in elevators, or in taxi cabs, they've all look as if they've got the possibility of having their own story, which is easy for me. That is easy to get lost in a story or a film. Yep. I could sort of be reading this and think, well, that guy looks a bit suspicious, and why is this person wearing that, and why does this person look like Otis, and why does all this go on? But yeah, as you said, it was great artist, and when I got to meet him, I think it was at London Film and Comic Con. He was doing a commission at the time, and I was like, I don't want to stop you from doing your work. I know commission-based artwork is a big part of your salary, so I don't want to get involved in much, but we had a quick chat about what he loved about doing the artwork, not only in this book, but comics in general. And it was a nice interaction to sort of sit down and speak with him about his artwork, because, as you said, some of those pages could be just complete art with clues about other stories. And then you've got pages like this that are just absolutely crammed with dialogue, like almost a book on a page. It's complete opposites.
Look at this first page. It's just G. He just says G. I do find it so weird that this is the secret origin, and we introduce this whole Superboy thing, but we do another giant jump.
Oh yeah, huge. There's no here or there. It's just straight in.
Like, my favorite part of Birthright, and we're going back to that for a quick second because this is kind of like the retcon to that, was my favorite part is the beginning where Clark is the reporter in Africa and he does the interview and he's doing that. That is my favorite part of that whole story, because that's showing us that he is growing, learning, becoming the man he's supposed to be. And once again, here we've cut all that growth out. We're now jumping into, you could almost cut the first 2 issues out and just start with this.
Yeah, that's a good, as first pages go, that's a whopper. That's going to get me hooked into the story. So yeah, you could have left out that Legion stuff. You could have, maybe even left out that first part.
You could fill that in later as a flashback, but it feels almost disconnected. But here, I do like we're back to the classic blue suit, white shirt, kind of red tie.
Even the tie, down to that. And again, he's got an outdated look, an ill-fitting suit. It's a classic-looking Perry White, even down to the little, scrolly little eye. But it's not. This origin isn't really secret. We've known this origin from every single other origin story from before, which is an okay scenario. Yeah. I'm very happy to keep reading about my Superman's backstory. Just the fact that it's always the same.
I like the fact that he's looking up, he's trying to help people. They're rude. I've always kind of liked the idea of Metropolis is a great place on the cusp of not being a good place.
Yeah.
We see that the Daily Planet is run down, and it's when Superman shows up that things really turn around for the town. Lex could be doing more for the city, but he's not. I do think this is interesting, though, that Rudy is the janitor. Rudy Jones is one of those characters, the Parasite, that he kind of gets thrown in anywhere. He can be, I'm taking a picture of the screen because my wife's like, how's it going? What's going on? I'm like, she's at work. Did you see the Superman Man of Tomorrow film?
Yes, sir.
I loved it. It was really good. We could talk about that forever. But, he was inserted there as the janitor of this other place, you know, and then here he's in the Daily Planet. So he's just kind of one of those characters that becomes tricky of like, who is Rudy Jones? Because everywhere you see him, he's different. Only thing they ever keep is he's like a lower person. But in that film, they really elevated him to a good person who has a bad thing happen to him.
Exactly. Tim Sheridan is absolutely... I want him to create more Superman content. He loves the character. He loves all pretty much nostalgic shows from the 80s and 90s. And to hear him... I found out that he was writing Superman Man of Tomorrow, and I was like, okay, you've got my attention already. Keep me hooked. Keep me in touch with what you're doing. And hopefully in the future, sometime this year, we're going to try and sit down and watch the film together.
Nice.
Because I would love to know what didn't make it in. He did say that some parts of the movie didn't make it in, but I bloody love that film. It is a fantastic... Just escapism for me is what I love about a story. But what he did with that movie and what he did for a character that he adores, he did very, very well. And it's a film that deserves a lot more recognition for sure.
I agree. It's definitely, I would like a sequel. I would like maybe that's not your basis for a new kind of connected universe. But at the same time, I liked it that I wouldn't mind seeing it build out into a connective, like, what would that version of the Flash be? Like we're teased the Batman, but I'd like a little bit more. By the way, my wife says she likes your hat.
Thank you very much.
So I'll pass that on.
Thank you, wife. But yeah, I mean, even as that being another Superman origin story, it was told in a new way. There was new architecture. There was a new look. There were different scenarios. There was a different side to Clark and Superman's personality.
It was very modern, like very without losing, you know, I think Clark and Spider-Man both can get lost because their idea of what the geek, the nerd is changed so much today of what it was that now this version is almost a caricature, kind of like the way they portrayed real quick Max Dillon in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yeah. Like was almost a caricature than an actual character. And like, so updating the Clark and in Spider-Man and how the old fashioned isms is it was done very well in that film. That's where I was going. But we digress.
We do. Which is easily done when talking about Superman content. But
we were at the suit, Rudy, and then we meet Lombard.
Yes.
Which I think is a great, fun character to have around. I wish that, you know, he appeared in Man of Steel, but wasn't in BVS. And he's one that I wish we would get more in some sort of Superman show or series. Then we meet Jimmy, you know, coffee boy, wanting to be I like that he's more of an errand boy, that he wants to be a photographer, but it's not there.
Yeah. Like, not just yet.
And then, this Lois Lane and Perry scene is just dialogue and brilliant artwork. And like, you get to see Lois as being strong and kind of a little bit vulnerable in her face. And then I love how they all meet Clark and they're just like, what? And I think sometimes my problem, like with this Clark, is Clark's supposed to kind of blend into the background and just be part of things, not really stick out. But he's almost so awkwardly odd that he stands out too much. You know, you wouldn't think so much, oh, he's Superman, but like you're always kind of thinking about Clark because he just is so awkward. I like that, like, you know, Clint's, he's replacing someone from the Daily Star because the guy defected to the Daily Star, so Kent's taking over.
Yeah.
You know, I liked that, but I really loved in Lois and Clark how they're like, oh, we can't use you. And then he goes off and takes the assignment that Lois rejected and did it. to prove himself. I like that about as a character. But I do like that Lois's desk's a mess. We see this side of her. We see her getting her costume. We see like Rudy is kind of really just a crummy person.
Yeah.
Clark. I think you have to create a relationship with Clark and Lois for when Lois loves Superman, or, one of the critiques I heard about Superman, the movie, and Superman 2, if you look at those as one story, was Lois Lane loved Superman. Did she really love Clark? Because then he gives up being Superman for her, but would she still love him if he didn't have his Supermanness? Because she never really got to know Clark.
Two completely, different personalities in a way. They are very two. Once, obviously, when he is Superman, he's got that confidence level that he brings out to bring home the fact that he is not just a mere mortal. And then you've got Clark doing the absolute opposite, so that you don't remember him. You don't remember his face or his voice, or remember what Clark said that day. And is she going to be able to fall in love with that, as you said, the same person that isn't as super as his counterpart? Which is why it's always important to remember how important Clark Kent is to the Superman universe. I'd happily watch a 2-hour movie that just concentrates on Clark and Lois, fighting for the scoop.
Yeah.
Of them trying to get the story, maybe with a hint of Superman. That would be always nice. But just to see those two interact together, because I love any scene where Lois and Clark get to interact.
I like here that Lois basically tricks Clark as a diversion, that she sneaks into the demonstration, but she is shortly found out. And of course, that's where we get her falling off a building.
Yep.
Everybody's looking up. Clark ditches, and we get the amazing. I mean, this is iconic artwork.
So I got asked about a year ago by my good buddy Mike. We were talking about getting some new artwork created for my channels, and he was like, "If you could create yourself as like any Superman scene, what would it be?" And I was like, "Well, that's one of them. I'll send you the picture." But it was pretty much. It's that scene of him going down the alleyway, ripping the shirt off, and he's done that with my iconic glasses and beard, bless him. But it's one of those.
It's a great promo shot of you on your website and everything.
It's but again, as a Superman image, it's one that doesn't get old. Anytime Superman is in the dark, running into the light, normally ripping that shirt open, he's getting down to business. It's
just like when they released that first trailer for Supergirl season 2, and in the trailer had Tyler running down the alley, and you just see the tie come off.
That's what you need.
Rip. And I remember just sitting there watching it and getting goosebumps, and I'm like super excited for this. And then I posted on our Facebook page the other day. My daughter was getting dressed, and she put on a pink flannel over top of her pink Supergirl shirt, and just comes running open. It's like Supergirl, and like running around the house. So it was great. It is an iconic shot. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, even like in Crisis, or was it Crisis or Elseworlds? It was Elseworlds, where they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "A friend." Like, you're just like, you're like, ah.
Yeah. Stuff that gets put in for the fans, and like anything. Keeping it classic when he rips the shirt off, and it's just one of those goosebump moments that I can't get enough of.
I mean, him saving Lois here it's all great. I'm glad they didn't do the "I've got you, who's got you."
Yeah, I don't really had to. It was pretty much, but everything about that is fantastic. Everything from the reflection in the glass behind them, and him defeating the laws of physics and catching a helicopter that way without it shattering, straight out of Superman 78. But it's a moment that I was glad that was put in there.
I do love the end of this issue. And I say issue just because I'm looking at the individuals, is I love that he saves her and people are like, "Hey, don't move. I got questions for you. Stay away from him." And then, if you look to the last page, he's flying away. people are questioning. He sees Ma and Pa. But the last part is, I think I've made a mistake.
Yeah. Which
I
is
love that
deep question.
Sowing of doubt. Like, and now this is, okay, so from this point out is where I like the story more. Because one, I like that it's a small story. I like that it's not a grandiose alien invasion. You know, that's where it goes in Birthright. And that's actually my least favorite part of Birthright is like the whole like Lex Luthor. It's cool for the book, but like personally, for the first Superman, even like a Man of Steel, like this grandiose alien invasion, I always think that's kind of like you're better for like your sequel. Kind of like, you know, they did in Superman 2. But I like the idea that this is very small. It's not world shattering. It's Superman clashing with, as we'll find out, the military and some other foes. So as we go into issue 4, which I always like this idea of like the poor people looking up and Lex Luthor here trying to play the benevolent, I love you, let me help you, I'll change your life, you know. And of course, who does he pick? But our newfound Rudy. Great artwork of Angry Lex.
He's got a fantastic little side eye. He does a good job of just like, you know, looking to the side. I'm not happy about that. I'm going to remember that for later.
I'm actually a big fan of like this Clark with like the sweater vest, just because I love sweater vests and I used to wear a lot when I was in college. Just because I put on a sweater vest over a t-shirt or whatever. So I kind of like it because it's just enough of a little bit of a change.
Yes.
We see, you know, we see Lois and Clark doing what they do best. I love how Clark just kind of follows Lois. And I love seeing Lois super confident, but then all of a sudden kind of get taken aback. Like when she finds out about her father, he's going to be there. And then I think that's interesting. And then I love the panel where Clark's like, we've actually met before, Mr. Luthor. Clark Kent from Smallville. And he's like, now he says, yes, it was some time ago, but I'd remember those glasses anywhere. And he just like brushes him off. Like, and then we get Rudy start to turn into Parasite.
And it is not pleasant.
No, it is not. He is like getting like it spews out of him, man.
Out of all the sensitive areas, especially that, I mean, like
I think Parasite is a great early villain for Superman because he's dangerous and he tests Superman, the fact that he can absorb his power, take his strength, and then, you know, then Superman, like, especially when you introduce a story like, if we look at Man of Steel into BVS, just for the sheer fact that the way that story is presented, he had never felt weakness until he got hit with that kryptonite gas. And as much as we could have expanded the idea that Superman is then right now fighting something he's used to, you know, not being hurt, then to feel all of his energy gone. You know, like in Smallville, there's all kinds of stories where Clark loses his powers, Clark gets weak, he fights kryptonite all the time. But that initial kind of blow to Superman of being, oh, this is what it feels like to be weak, I think it's a great humbling in his story of helping him understand himself, especially as an early on where he's doubting his ability. Should he be Superman? Did he make the right choice?
Yes.
So I think Parasite is a great choice for this story. He's also like, you don't have to have the A-list #1 villain for a first intro.
No.
You know, that's one thing I loved about Batman Begins is they gave us Scarecrow and then secretly Ra's al Ghul, you know, and the mob, because they let that story tell Batman with villains that we like but aren't like, oh, I want more of. So once now the character's established, then we bring in top tier. So yeah, that's my little side tangent here. So, you know, he's fighting Parasite. It's great. Awesome. He's trying to figure out what his powers are. It's, Luthor, this is his first experience seeing Superman. He attacks basically Superman, but the artwork.
Oh, yeah.
The artwork is where I just lose it. I mean, this right here. I mean, this is
off the page.
This is like the stuff where you just like, okay, I just want this as a poster. Just give me this as a poster. And, I love that he sees Jimmy and thinks Jimmy's going to jump. He's not. And like, Jimmy talks about having to leave Metropolis. And, he's talking about, it's just such a casual conversation between Jimmy and Clark. And I always liked Jimmy being just like, maybe 4 years, 5 at the very most, younger than Clark.
Yeah.
I like the idea that he's young enough to kind of be like, look at him like his pal, like a little bit younger, but at the same time, they're buddies and friends. Like, I like more of like, Jimmy becomes like the leveled up Pete Ross.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you have Pete, Lana, Clark. Then you have Clark, Jimmy, Lois. It's like an evolution of friendship. And I never liked when it was like Clark's, I'm 30 and I'm 16-year-old Jimmy Olsen, like, I like when Jimmy's a little younger.
A little bit younger, but still,
enough that they
enough.
could be friends. You know what I'm saying? Like,
not just a big brother or, an accomplice, as it were, but to be old enough to know, to get decent wisdom off a good friend, not a pushy older brother scenario.
And I love that it's Jimmy and his photographer mindset here that gets him to do the hands on the hips.
Yeah.
And the fact that Superman is taking a photo for Jimmy so that Jimmy can keep his job at the Daily Olsen and actually get to be a photographer. Like, that is such a small thing to do, but it's such a Superman thing to do. Because he even says, like, I was trying to stay out of the spotlight but okay. And then, of course, the issue ends with Lex outraged and,
Yeah, but that's the one that I would, if there was ever to be posters available, it's the black and white photo that Jimmy took, which is just...
Yes.
It's gorgeous.
Exactly.
It's gorgeous. I've been wanting to get a Gary Frank commission over the years, but he's always so busy. And
this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that, for me, I love that element. Yes, it does look quite a lot like the Man of Steel seen on the rig, but it is just the shading. It is that you can feel the heat coming off those flames.
The more we talk, the more I realize, like, they don't really put out many DC posters anymore. Like,
I mean, you can get the classic ones, which is very nice to have. They brought out some, I think, for the New 52.
Yeah, but I remember when they had the Brahimo Joker as a poster art.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there thinking, like, just like even being at the higher end comic book stores, like there was one here that I got a poster of Jim Lee's Harley Quinn for my daughter. But like I'm sitting there thinking, I think the last poster that I bought that was new by DC is when they did the Superman Action Comics 1000, the all 1000 covers,
It's nice. It acts as also a checklist for all the ones that I've not yet added to my collection. But artwork, especially with books like this, stories like this, where it's just...
I would love to
any of them would work.
I would love to have a really great, like, Lee Brahimo's Secret Origins cover of Superman is one of my favorite Superman, like, cover images as, like, a poster. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, like... But any of these, like these two shots we discussed from Gary Frank here, man, I would love to have as a poster hanging up. I love how we're in this, Superman saving people.
Yeah.
We're seeing him and Lois and Jimmy, and then we get, Sam Lane. General Sam Lane.
Yes.
And then we get John Corbin. And Corbin is another character, much like Rudy, who gets convoluted and changed in their background. Like they're like the Metallo from the Superboy TV series is completely different from the Metallo we got in Smallville, which is different from the Metallo presented here, the Metallo from the animated series, the Metallo from Supergirl. Like, he's another character that just kind of like, what do we want him to be?
Yeah.
We'll just put him as whatever, you know? And I kind of like the idea of him right here as like gung-ho, follows like the ideal man that Sam Lane would want for his daughter, which is basically Sam Lane too.
Yes.
But he's temperamental, he's arrogant, and I love how he's like getting, like, you see he's got a temper. He grabs Lois, and she's like, John, you're hurting me. And then I love the Clark just, excuse me. And it makes you kind of wonder like how much pressure Clark kind of put on him. Because I love in the scene where they're shaking hands and you see them, like, you have the panels heater.
Yeah.
And then Clark just, a little bit more pressure.
A little bit more. No, yeah, just enough that he knows that he's doing it.
He's like, I hope you have a pleasant stay in Metropolis. I love it because, like, it's like he's swooping in to help Lois without really doing anything to help her.
Yeah.
Just his presence, you know, and then the fact, and he's like, I love where Clark says, he seemed nice. And Lois is like, I've never seen anyone stare him down before. He's like, oh, must be the glasses. Buy you lunch? You know, and it's like this charm that he has that's not too much.
Too arrogant. Yeah, it's not. It's just a little bit of peacocking. It's just the right amount that he took control of that situation in a situation that he normally wouldn't take charge of. But I think that's his emotions getting the better of Clark more than anything else.
You know, and I love Lois. Like, I don't want to jump too far. We see Lex with Sam Lane and Corbin. Like, we're going to pile this new Metallo Metal Zero exo suit that has kryptonite in it. And of course, we learned that Lex discovered kryptonite as a child back in Smallville.
Yeah.
And then I love this diner scene of just Lois. I like all the interaction between Lois and Clark in this. I love that Clark, as Superman, gets called in. He goes in to try to have a conversation. Like, he's generally trying to have a conversation with General Lane, and just the arrogance, the enemy, like this art here of Clark walking away.
Yeah. A little bit stooped over, just enough to know that he's been not beaten in that situation, but he knows the pressure from that scene.
And I like this next couple of pages, almost like that stereotypical Superman gauntlet, but it's soldiers shooting him, and he's walking and he's trying to disarm them. And then we have Metallo show up and just punches him.
Just coming in hot. No, no smart little quip, just straight in with a blow.
And then boom, the kryptonite, he's weak, he gets shot, he's down. But at the same time, because of just the interaction, it explodes and Corbin is down.
Yes.
Of course, I can say Sergeant Corbin, you know, Lex says at the bottom. And then we have the military showing up at the Daily Planet. It's very interesting that then we go into the last issue, Secret Origins number 6, which was October of 2010. Now, I'm trying to remember if it was 5 or 6. I'm trying to remember one of these. I had the hardest time finding for a long time because I didn't want to, like, I'd already bought the majority of them as single copies, and I didn't want to buy just the trade, and I wanted to hunt down and find. And just looking at some of these dates, it kills me. And now I remember why I had such issues with it. November of 2009, number 1. December of 2009, number 2. January of 10, number 3. March of 10, number 4. 5 is May of 10, and then October. So it took almost a year for 6 issues, and the first few came out. And now it kind of reminds me of why I missed one, and I'm pretty sure it was number 5 that I didn't have for the longest time. But of course, like, it picks up right here. The military's at the Daily Planet.
Yeah.
Lex is the crazy pseudo surgeon here on Corbin. And, you know, Superman's getting attacked, getting shot. We have conversations between everybody. Jimmy Olsen distracts. Lois slips out. And then we get the new Metallo, which is this.
Yeah.
What do you think about this Metallo?
Now, I don't like the fact that he doesn't look as menacing, for one. He looks more like, he's more sleek, he's more slick. Yeah. He looks slippery. Doesn't look very metal.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sure, he looks menacing, but he's got the nostrils of a turtle. Looks a bit more amphibian-like than anything else. I would have preferred, you know, a more menacing-looking suit or a more menacing-looking metallic tone to it. Something that when he hits something, you can hear the metal go donk. You can feel those punches. This guy doesn't look like he can throw a punch. Looks quite like a luchador.
Yes.
Which is still a good look, but not for Metallo.
Yeah. If you said this was somebody else, I'd be like, okay. But you said Metallo. No. It looks like he has metal on his suit, but
he's got some little metal rivets. But that is about it.
I like the idea that Metallo, as he evolves from the suit, like he's wearing the suit, but then he becomes the suit. It's like, you know, I like the distinction of he's piloting something, and then, you know, now he is becoming more of a cyborg almost with the kryptonite in him. And it's like his anger, his lust to destroy Superman causes him to lose his humanity, and he becomes more metal. He becomes more, you know, cybernetic, and the kryptonite becomes even more important to him as it does replace his heart. It's definitely a weak point to me in this story. You know, I like the idea that the kryptonite's also poisoning him.
He just looks a little bit too aerodynamic, as it were. He looks too much like he's in some sort of spandex outfit, which isn't like the opposite of metal in a way. Yeah. It's not chunky. It's not as menacing as it could have been. He's still, I mean, he looks menacing, and he's got some very menacing dialogue, but it needed more heft to it, I feel. Something a bit more chunky.
I mean, I don't need the huge bulky where, you know, but like...
not where it's physically impossible to throw a fast punch, but enough where you can see that he is becoming, you know, another thing, as it were.
Like, this is, I mean, Superman punches and knocks the mask off, and we learn it, like, the mask shield, and we get the shot of what John's become right here.
Now, I do like that. That's very almost, you know, Darth Vader reveal.
Yeah.
But he looks like he's gone through some stuff, including, you know, obviously having his skull opened up. He's been fully given a makeover by Lex. And yeah, I do like that. That is a menacing look.
I love that he like goes to basically kill Lois, and Superman jumps in front of her and takes the kryptonite blast.
Full blast of kryptonite. Yeah.
And then, you know, this is always one of my favorites. Heats up, and this is a sewer manhole, chunk of metal, throws it over, you know, to lead metal, covers the kryptonite. So now they can fight better. He takes him up.
Does the right thing, takes him out of harm's way. Yep.
You know, that was always my thing, is like, quick tangent. In BVS, he's flying Doomsday into space. He's doing exactly what he should. Throw Doomsday into space. He can't fly.
Yeah, keep going.
But then, we get missiled. You know, then people shoot a missile. But, you know, I digress. he takes him to space. He passes out. Superman comes back down. And now the military's there. And then we see people are starting to riot towards the military. And this is like great Superman because he says, stop.
Yes.
Everyone, please stop this before someone gets seriously hurt. And he negotiates peace. And he tries to say, I'm not your savior. Lex isn't. All of you, listen to me. And he tries to basically brokerage, just like he has every right to be angry with General Lane for what he just released on him, but he's still trying to brokerage peace. And Lex, these final pages of Lex and Superman this is classic. This is my city, my people. You don't belong. These people, you don't belong, Luthor. It's great dialogue of who truly is the Superman. It's interesting how early in the story we actually kind of get our wrap up of
it sort of goes from all that action and a lot of excitement to just finished.
And then we have Superman at Clark at the Daily Planet, the Lois on the roof talking to Superman.
I love rooftop scenes. You can't go wrong with a rooftop scene between Clark, Lois, and Superman.
And then I love Jimmy Olsen's, hey guys, I was going to have lunch. Am I interrupting? And he's like, no. And she's like, yes. And, they're trying to get the Daily Planet, to start spinning again because now the paper is selling. There's news. And he helps turn the planet. And Lois asks the question, are you a man or an alien? And he says, I'm Superman, Lois. And it's like, what does that mean? And I like how in the last pages we kind of have this iteration of a new person in Metropolis, and he bumps into a lady, much like Clark did at the beginning of number 3.
Yes.
And the attitude of the people have changed. We see the little kid wearing the Superman shirt on his dad's shoulders, people looking up, Lex looking angry, and then we have this amazing final shot of Superman. And, I like this story, especially starting with issues 4, 5, and 6. The arc of 4, 5, and 6 to me is that's the story that I like. It's a decent kind of origin. I like that it's smaller, but in some ways I feel like it's a way of trying to appease fans, and it's like to me it feels like it should be. It's not the continuity type big bang like, oh, this is his secret, this is what happened. It's more of like this very quiet, like, here's the story
reveal. And
it's like, okay, you kind of pulled elements from the film series, you put some new stuff in there. Was it needed? Was it necessary? Or was it just like, Geoff Johns kind of stretching and wanting to put in his idea of where Superman should be so that they can, change it? But then what's funny is think about when this finished in October of 2010, you're 1 year away from the New 52.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so you just did this story to retcon all this. And you're 1 year away from the big reboot.
Is it a final hurrah? Is it a goodbye? Is it a love letter to Superman 78?
And then you think about, like, if you really want to like twist your brain, you think about where this leaves off. This is kind of like the story origin for the Superman that would be the rebirth Superman. It's enough to make your head hurt. Because
when there's too many timelines going on at once, it's like a song that's got too many notes in it, and you don't know what to listen out for or pay attention to. Especially with the Legion of Superhero stuff as well. It's thinking, oh, okay. So it does, I feel, with the speed of it and reading it in one go in a trade makes it easier, makes the story more engrossing. because as you said, those first 2 issues, they're not really essential. They're not. It's nice. It's filler, as it were. But after the first 2 chapters of it, that's when it all kicks off. And I would love a story to start just like that. That is enough for me to get completely hooked.
I would do like more of the first, like young Clark.
Yeah.
And then this is a separate thing. Almost like you did this 3-4 issue first trade of, and then the back half was a second part, like that's part 2, like, because I feel like there's that, the way you set this up, you make that hard jump. After 2 issues, you make this hard jump. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. All right. So what happened here?
What you missed out, yeah. Where's the stuff that we didn't see?
But it was good. I mean, like I said, I like it enough, but it's not my favorite because I feel like it was unnecessary. Mm-hmm. If you look at it just as a story, the 3, 5, and 6, or 4, 5, and 6, I like a lot. So as we wrap up here, Luke, I got a couple more questions for you.
Please, fire away, buddy.
Quick ones. I know your time is valuable, and we could.
That's all good. Today was an interview day, so it's fine. I recorded 2 episodes of the podcast, and I also you get an exclusive. I'm not sure when my version is going live or when this is going out, but about 4 hours ago, I got to speak with Lily Aspel, who is the
nice.
Yes, and she was an absolute sweetheart. She's someone that I've been wanting to interview for a while, and on Wednesday in the UK, it gets like a digital download. So I saw that. I
saw you post that.
They're doing some promo for that. So she was I'm going to edit that tomorrow. It's going to go live tomorrow night. But I think she is just incredible as a young actress. She was very humble, very, very professional in the interview, and I think in, let's say, 5 years' time or 4 years' time, the way that her acting has progressed since the first movie and her stunt work, she will be the next Wonder Woman in a movie franchise.
She should be. I mean, let's take a quick sidestep and think that even what she did in Wonder Woman 1984 was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. 2018. So
is when they filmed, majority of that. So think about now. I definitely think I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but could you imagine if they do something where they just have her cast now, since she's grown up more, in Wonder Woman 3, because she's going to look different, thanks to just growth, puberty, that fun stuff, and have her as like Donna Troy, and you have Gal Wonder Woman, because I've said that to me Wonder Woman 3 should be about her returning to Themyscira post Justice League. And you could do a storyline where Lily plays Donna Troy.
Ooh,
we could go down this rabbit hole. We could go
there. That's it, and that's what's difficult to do. But it's fun to think that way. But for her now, I mean, she did a bit of promo work for the first Wonder Woman movie. But obviously, she was a kid back then. She's a little bit older now. So she understands the work ethic, but she's doing a lot more promo, and that makes me think like, I feel as if they're investing here in the future, and I'm 100% okay with that, because the stunts that she put in that film and the generally good acting. She's from pretty much this part of the UK, so she's got a fantastic English dialect, but in the film she does obviously a very different dialect, almost sounds like Gal in everyday life. But
wasn't that part of the big thing, is all the actors had to learn how to speak with a similar accent
to Gal.
As Gal, so it had this smooth sound of what the Amazon sounded like.
And they did, I mean, everyone sort of sounded alike. There was a bit of sort of Arabic in there. There was a bit of sort of, like almost some French twang to some of the word. But hopefully, fingers crossed, one day she will either return as Diana or Donna. That would be even more exciting to see.
I just think it'd be awesome, like her as like Donna next to Gal, and like this idea of legacy built. So my last couple of questions for you, and
yes, sir.
What did you think in the current run? Like we've talked a lot about Clark and Superman, of just where Bendis did the truth story where Clark tells everyone that he is Superman. just in a bubble, like without us going down that rabbit hole, just kind of, how did you feel about it?
Didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you. There was cool.
That's as blunt as I can be. It was an interesting touch, but it felt like a gimmick. You know, I mean, Superman has a secret identity, not a secret origin as such, but a secret identity. There are two heroes in the world that I love. One of them is Superman, and one of them is Clark Kent, because they are two different characters.
And I think that having the secret identity was always part of him getting to be himself, and like the importance of him also getting to fight for truth and justice as Clark with his words, compared to always just having to do as Superman.
Yes.
I mean, the parts of that story that I did like, I think you still could have done if you had just done it in a different way of him revealing himself to Jimmy, to Perry, because I like when he reveals himself to Perry.
Yes.
But even then, all that, like we just did a couple of years ago, where Lois outed Clark as Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, you know, at the end of the New 52 before Rebirth. So this is just now like the Rebirth version, which now, once again, here we are in a soft reboot, however you want to look at it. It doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so that's like a little pocket story. But yeah, it was one of those I didn't really like, because to me, it just felt like it was more problems for the family than it should have been.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing about him keeping this side of his life private, was the fact not really at first just to protect his mum and dad.
Yeah.
You know?
My last question here. Hold on. Sorry.
Right.
It's a work thing. Is for you as a fan, this is a tough question. Okay.
Okay.
Which version do you prefer to watch? Superman 2 or Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut?
See, I'm very mood determined. I've got to be in a certain mood to watch a certain movie. Some days it will be Superman, or sometimes a Donner cut, sometimes a theatrical cut. Basically, I'm not going to cop out and give you an easy answer, but
it's tough.
It is tough. I love them both. Listen, as long as my hero story is being told, whether it be in these sorts of stories where sometimes we don't always get what we want, but we get what we're given and we're appreciative of it because it's our hero story being told to a new audience. But whenever a director gets the chance to tell the story that they want it to be told, they have that epiphany moment when they're just like when Superman was created back in the day. There was that epiphany moment where it was like, this is it.
Yes.
This is my Superman story. They got to tell that. And again, it's situations with Donner, situations with the Snyder Cut. It's not the director or the creative finished product that they had in mind when they finished that idea. Yes, stories do get changed whilst filming, whilst editing said movies.
Yes.
It's not the story that creator had in their mind when they first, like, this is the way I want to tell the Superman story.
I agree.
So,
you know, I go back because I love, even though it was a screen test, I love the reveal of Clark as Superman to Lois in the Donner cut, which was a screen test, because you're talking about that change from humble Clark to Superman. And this was even before they started filming the movie. Oh, you know, and you can see in Chris's performance. Yes, that's it.
That's it. It's that confidence boost. It's like got a serious bit of glint in his eye about it as well. But
it's tough. I go back and forth. Like I'll watch one and I'm like, man, I really like that. Then I'll watch the other, like, oh, I really like that. Or I'll just be like, you know what? Someone needs to put these two together and figure it out and make a better version of the two.
Maybe a 4-hour cut. And I mean, and that's the thing that we're so lucky about these days, is that nothing ever is final when it comes to movies or comics or TV shows.
It's
will always be
horrible. I mean,
it is. It's you know, it's just thinking, really, I've got to buy another Blu-ray now.
Well, I'm not on my shelf. I have the Superman, the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I have the Superman extended cut where they put the gauntlet scene back in.
Oh yes.
They put in the the better Kirk Allen, Noel Neal reveal on the train. And then I have the 3-hour TV cut of Superman the movie, which is just full of little, just couple of seconds.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a new citizen. There's a new member of the public walking past the camera.
Yeah, I mean,
look, there's Donna again. Just come and have a cameo.
Yeah. It's like the stuff you just put in to fill in time. You know, there's some cool stuff that were in there, just in the Smallville scene, like some wider shots and stuff. But you're just like, all right, I have to be able to like just say this is the movie.
This is my version. But that's the thing with you know, just the way that technology is evolving. So are the ways that we are getting to rewatch these films again. So I'm always thankful for that. I mean, I'm sure there's only so much celluloid left that we haven't seen of any of the Superman movies. Yes. It's all rips are there, like director's notes are there. Everything is like, it gives people imagination for the scenes that they didn't get to see or the ones that they did see. So yeah, I'm just thankful. The easy answer is I'm very thankful that we have all this different Superman content to enjoy, because that means our heroes, you know, his story keeps on getting told. But basically, if I'm getting fresh Superman content, whether it be the new TV series or the possibility of future movies or animations, I'm going to be a happy little camper. So as long as Superman's about, I'll be about.
That's a great way to end it. Luke, thank you for being here today.
No, it's my pleasure. It was great. I mean,
I could think of more stuff to talk about, but we'll have to just get back together.
We'll save that for another day. Maybe we'll find the next story to talk about, or the Man of Steel, Man of Tomorrow sequel. We'll talk about that when that comes out, hopefully.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look in the sky.